It unfolded on a sinister Friday night, halfway into the eerie embrace of October, when the heavens wept torrents upon the world. My weary bones sought refuge after a grueling workday as I ventured into a Halloween-themed housewarming party amidst friends. I had skipped the costume, a weary spectre in the midst of ghouls and goblins, opting instead for a quick pick-me-up in the form of Adderall and some white claws from a dimly lit gas station. The gathering swelled with the mingling of 25 to 30 souls, including a few unfamiliar faces I was obliged to acquaint myself with. Socializing and alcohol coursed through me, a desperate attempt to ward off exhaustion. Deep down, the craving for my bed grew, but the erratic hours of a hospital job had taken my sleep hostage. A chance to escape materialized as I slipped away through the shadowy backyard, a ghost slipping through the veil of the living. Farewells to 20-odd people felt beyond my exhausted capacity. In retrospect, driving under the influence was a reckless decision I wouldn't recommend to anyone. Always choose the safety of an Uber. Rain lashed at my Subaru's windshield as I navigated the quiet, desolate streets. Silence enveloped me, no music to break the monotony, just the relentless drumming of raindrops against glass. Then, on a dimly lit residential road, I spotted her, a lone figure, soaked, sans umbrella or shelter. She halted, meeting my car's gaze as I drew closer. I grappled with a decision, torn between driving on and offering her refuge. Beneath my battle-worn exterior, compassion prevailed, urging me to pull over. The window slid down, and I inquired if she needed a ride. Without uttering a word, she slipped into the back seat. I sought her destination, and she responded with a vague, "To the end of this road." That's where I took her. As I halted at a second stop sign, curiosity got the better of me, and I asked why she was out in this relentless rain. She explained she was in a hurry, unwilling to summon a cab. A shared joke about the exorbitant cost of cabs and Ubers lightened the mood, and we exchanged names. I was Jake, she was Allie. After that, an ominous silence swallowed our conversation. The road stretched on, the final stop sign loomed, and I inquired once more, "Is it past the dead-end sign?" Silence. As I traversed the intersection, my eyes gravitated to the rearview mirror, and dread congealed in my chest. Her presence had vanished, leaving only an empty seat. I slammed the brakes and leaped out, a frantic search of the back seat revealing no trace of her. No dampness, no footprints, no sign she'd ever been there. Panic clawed at my sanity as I fumbled around, bewildered and terrified. Gazing down the dimly lit road, I noticed, to the right of my car, an ominous fence, shrouded in an unnatural darkness. Beyond it, the graveyard, an abyss of tombstones bathed in moonlight. Her words echoed in my mind, "To the end of this road." With trembling hands, I returned to my car, executed a hasty three-point turn, and raced home. I knew one thing for certain. I hadn't consumed enough alcohol to conjure hallucinations from the depths of my weary mind.
In late October, my girlfriend Stacy and I went on a road trip to Stowe, Vermont. We found a cabin on a website called Glamming Hub, not far from the village, just a 20-minute drive away. The cabin sat on top of a hill, offering a great view of the colorful fall leaves, which was the main reason we chose this place. We had rented the cabin from Thursday night to Sunday, and it had a special lock with a code. The owner gave us the code before we arrived, and it worked perfectly. When we walked inside, it was cozy but also a little creepy. Everything in there was made of old wood, giving it a rustic and spooky feeling. The place even smelled like an old log cabin. Inside, there was a bathroom, a small kitchen, 3 bedrooms, and a living room. It was more than enough room for just the two of us. There were 2 TVs, one in the main bedroom and one in the living room. But there was one locked door that we assumed led to the 3rd bedroom listed in the ad. We thought maybe the owner had some personal stuff in there, and he knew it was only us staying. We put our stuff in the second bedroom and left the main bedroom neat. Since we got there late on Thursday, we went to a nearby town for dinner and took a walk around. We watched a movie and went to bed. The next day was cloudy and cold. We went for a hike in the woods nearby, which was peaceful and a little spooky. When we got back, I took a shower and changed my clothes. That's when Stacy told me she heard something from the locked bedroom. She thought it sounded like a radio or a recording. I went up to the door and listened, but it was silent. I knocked on the door, kind of teasing Stacy, but it freaked her out a bit. While Stacy was in the shower, I sat in the living room watching TV. That's when I heard a faint sound coming from the locked room. I muted the TV and put my ear to the door again. I could hear a weird, muffled noise like it was coming from a radio. I messaged and then called the owner to tell him about it. He didn't know why his wife would have locked the door, but he thought maybe she left some of her things in there. As for the strange noise, he didn't have an answer and said he'd have to ask his wife. Stacy and I went out for lunch after her shower. I didn't tell her about the noise because I didn't want to scare her, and I figured it was just some electronic device left in there. We went to a restaurant in town called Harrison's and then drove around the area before stopping at a park. While we were at the park, the owner called me back and said his wife didn't lock anything in that room. It left us puzzled and a little uneasy. He offered to come and unlock the door to check it out, and I agreed. When we got back to the cabin, Stacy went inside and collapsed on the couch after a long day. I listened at the locked room again, and the strange sounds were still there. I told Stacy to wait and walked outside. I realized I should have checked something earlier, so I went to the window of the locked room. There were no curtains, so I could see inside. What I saw was horrifying. There was a very skinny and tall guy in his 20s inside, wearing a hood. He was dancing slowly in the middle of the room and had a small radio in his hand. When he noticed me at the window, he stopped and smiled at me. I screamed Stacy's name and yelled at her to get out of the house. She rushed out, panicked and confused. I just told her to get in the car. I grabbed our bags and left everything else behind. We drove away and I called the owner, telling him to call the police because there was someone in the house. About an hour later, while we were waiting in town, the owner called back and said the police had arrived. They opened the locked room, but there was no one inside. However, they found a bunch of empty chip bags under the bed, which meant someone had definitely been in there. We went back to get our remaining stuff and worked out a refund with the owner and the website. There was no way we were staying in that cabin after what we saw. We found a nearby motel and stayed there until Sunday when we went back home. I couldn't stop thinking about that skinny guy dancing in the room, and I had trouble sleeping for a long time. It was really creepy to think that he had been in there the whole time, even while we were sleeping.